Our natural environment is responsible, directly or indirectly, for everything we need to live. Our food, our clothes, our homes, and how we heat and light them. For generations, there was a tendency to focus more on how to use available resources than how to maintain them. Now though, growing awareness of global warming and the dissipation of fossil fuels has led to a rethink on sustainability, on using our resources in a way which ensures they're protected for future generations. Producing energy from biomass is a sustainable form of heating. Windhager UK is one of a number of companies specialising in biomass boilers. Sales Director Charlie Lamb explains how it works.
Biomass is organic material. When we're talking of heating, and particularly in the domestic market, it's referring to really wood-based fuel. In the domestic market, the leading products and the most used products are pellet boilers, but also solid wood log boilers. But in the domestic UK market, the market is dominated by wood pellets. Biomass is an extension of a traditional British, if you will, pellet boiler. Many years ago, and sadly I'm of an age that was fitting pellet boilers 25 plus years ago, but at that time they were coal pellet boilers. At the end of the 70s, mid-80s, there was the oil crisis. Certain parts of Europe, particularly Austria and the German-speaking, landlocked, no natural fuels, no oil and natural gas reserves. They then looked into what they had on their doorstep, lots of wood, and from there the wood pellet boilers have developed.
I heard about biomass boilers just through sort of media and interest of that kind of thing anyway, you know, trying to look for sustainable solutions to the heating. LPG's not sustainable, so I sort of looked on it on the internet, but you know, it's a lot in the media.
The big advantage of biomass over fossil fuel is the carbon cycle. Anything we take out of the ground from fossil fuel, whether it be coal, whether it be oil, whether it be natural gas, we are just burning it and putting the carbon into atmosphere. With organic material, with biomass, we're actually going back to school thinking of our photosynthesis. During its life, a tree or any plant is absorbing carbon, taking carbon out of the atmosphere, which has to be a good thing. Obviously, when it's burnt, it does produce a certain amount of carbon, but the carbon produced is equal to or less than it's absorbed in its lifetime, and as a consequence, biomass is particularly well rewarded in terms of carbon because it's measured as a carbon neutral fuel. That coupled with the cost of pellets today, cost of pellets particularly against oil and LPG are very attractive. So you've got the carbon advantage and then you've got the fuel cost saving advantage as well. Wood pellets are manufactured in the UK from virgin timber. It is basically the solid mass of the branch, the timber, without the bark or any contaminants, compressed into a very solid, compact pellet, which gives us the consistency of both fluidity. When you pour them, it is fluid, and the calorific value, the energy content, which is very important for consistent burn. But they're made in the UK. There are plants in England, in Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland, in fact. Manufacturing capability has increased over the past few years, and we have sufficient capability on manufacture now, which far exceeds demand. As demand grows, we will see that equal out. But at the moment, the UK is definitely oversubscribed as far as pellet manufacture is concerned.
The main attraction for the biomass is the sustainability element, the fact that we're going to have to put some more trees out into the world, which is a fantastic thing, and it's sustainable. So we won't be using more fossil fuels. It's an easier way to get the heating into the house anyway.
The pellet production is from sustainable source. So as soon as any area of forestation is cleared, they will replant to ensure there is a continuity of supply. We're also seeing now a lot of new incumbents. There are a lot of major manufacturers who will, as part of their carbon offset plan, plant trees in a sustainable manner, which can be used as fuel in the future. So I think one of the myths that we must replaces that we are cutting down trees or that we're taking away the rainforest. Wood pellets are made from softwood. It's grown for the purpose. No other ingredients would be accepted because it would actually alter the calorific value of the pellet. So what we want and what we need is a softwood grown for the purpose that gives us clean and consistent calorific value, consistent fuel value from those pellets.
Basically, we'd come out and do a site visit, see there is space to put the boiler, whether there is an option for a fuel store or whether it could be hand fed, and give some advice on how to integrate this into an existing system. 99 times out of 100 that can be done quite easily. It's just a boiler at the end of the day with a heat and flow and return which can link up to any existing fossil fuel heating system.
For fully automatic systems, a tanker will deliver the pellets and deliver them into the hopper, which will be within the building somewhere. Once the pellets are delivered and the hopper is full, we can then draw those pellets via a vacuum to deliver them into the boiler. The advantage of the vacuum system is that you can distribute the pellets around corners and deliver them from a remote storage into the boiler. Once we have the pellets in the boiler, whether they're delivered by vacuum or whether they're hand fed in from 10 kilogram sacks, the boiler reacts in exactly the same way. When there's a call for heat in the morning, the pellets are delivered into the burner just like any other fuel. The ignition process is started as soon as the pellets are delivered, and there is an electrical element which glows very hot, over which we pass air, and it is that hot air that ignites the pellets. Once the burner is alight, it acts just like any other boiler. It produces heat. That heat is distributed through the heat exchanger and out through the chimney. The efficiency of the boilers means that the exhaust gas leaving the boiler is leaving the boiler at about 120 to 130 degrees C. Off of a wood burner or a stove, one would expect that to be in excess of 400 degrees C. At the end of every cycle, the boiler goes through a self-cleaning process and deposits any ash collected and transports it into the ash box. The ash box on a domestic boiler will only need to be emptied once, possibly twice a year, depending on the size of the boiler and the size of the property. The ash is potash and good for the garden, so actually it can be deposited, into the garden as a fertilizer as well.
For this property, and in this instance, we made and built a bespoke fuel store, whereby the pellets are delivered by a tanker and blown in, fuel store is filled up, and then the fuel is sucked from the fuel store into the boiler, and then obviously burnt in the combustion chamber. In some cases, you could have a manual fill. So if this was in a kitchen or utility room, you could fill the hopper with bags, so you wouldn't need the fuel store and all the necessary pipework there. You'd just see the boiler and the flue. And then it's a simple case of a heat and flow and return that would come out and go down and tie into your existing heating system. This particular boiler model got various types of controls, but you can tie a pellet boiler into a typical S-plan or general heating system that everybody knows in the UK. So to buy wood pellets, there's various places in the marketplace. You can go various places to buy them. You go online and you can work out which is the best price for you from where you live, what area, what size bags you want. So various different options, yeah.
Yeah, the installation was really, really easy. The guys turned up into the cider house to build the new pellet store. They were there a few days, but again, that didn't affect me. I didn't know it was even going on, to be honest. Just left them a key. It took a few days. Then they installed all the boiler, got that all up and running. And the last bit was coming into the house, which they used as house access for a couple of days, if that, to put in the controls, etc., and connect all the water up. They gave me loads of notice, so the tank was full of water. It was switched on in the evening, so I didn't have any loss of water or downtime. Kids could take showers or whatever, and the heating was always on, so that's fantastic.
How we live has a direct impact on the world around us. Adopting a different approach doesn't have to mean expense and inconvenience. It can be clean, safe, cost-effective, and carbon balancing. Join us after the break for more.
With over 90 years' experience in providing high-quality products, Windhager is one of the industry's leading manufacturers of biomass central heating systems. Windhager UK partner with highly skilled installers across the country to ensure that our ethos in providing excellent wood pellet boilers is carried forward, bringing warmth into your home. Replace your fossil-fueled boiler and receive RHI payments. To heat your home sustainably, contact Windhager UK.
Welcome back. We're looking at how we heat our homes, old ways versus new. Let's rejoin Nigel Preen from Almondsbury Eco Heat Limited.
So this is the other end of the pipework run that comes from the boiler house in an external trench and up into this cupboard. It comes into this manufacturer's own heating controls for the heating and hot water. Has its own manifold. Flow and return comes in, and then you've got a zone, a heating zone there for the radiator circuit, and you've got a zone there that's just doing domestic hot water. The heating zone is weather compensated, which means that the flow temperature of the heating flow is relevant to the outside air temperature. So as the outside air temperature increases, the boiler flow temperature reduces. So it's making it energy efficient, you're not using so much fuel. And then that one's just doing domestic hot water, so it just flows up to the cylinder. When the cylinder's satisfied, the pump drops off. It's as simple as that, really. You can have this system going into an existing S-plan type heating control, where you'd have a 2-port valve in a room stat and a cylinder stat. But this is this manufacturer's own control system for energy efficiency and, you know, making sure that they get the optimum out of the boiler. This is where the existing LPG boiler was housed, and this is what this controls has replaced, and this is where we've connected onto the existing heating system. Other than this bit of work in here, there's been no other disruptions to any of the heating system or hot water system, apart from the controls element, and also as a matter of course we flush the existing heating system and redose with inhibitor. But other than that, what you see here is what we've done, basically. So it's very easy to integrate this system into an existing system.
The system is so simple. An elderly person, a disabled person, or anybody could use it. It can be set up by the engineers on verbal instruction from the tenant or the owner of the house, what they want, when they want the temperature, which is actually what they did for us. Since then, we've tweaked it a little bit to come on slightly different temperatures, because obviously we've just gone into a cold snap. But now I think where we are, it's perfect. It's very, very simple.
So for older people or frail people, you can get smaller bags of pellets that you can just pour in relatively easy, and the ash pan is quite light. You can pull out on wheels and you can drag that outside into a bin or stick it on the garden relatively easy. So no problems for older people at all.
In regard to the installation, I hardly knew it went on. The guys were here, they just got on with it. They built the new pellet store. That took a few days. Then the boiler went in. Again, it didn't affect me at all in the house whatsoever. Then they put the controls into the main house. It took a couple of days. Absolutely no hassle at all. I think I was out. I had heating in the morning, and the new heating system was switched on in the evening. So there was no sort of downtime. Didn't affect us. We had a full boil of water. I should say a full tank of water. So we wouldn't know it happened, really.
The common misconceptions of biomass, a lot. That they're new technology. I was fitting biomass boilers, or pellet boilers should I say, 25 years ago. They're not new. It's a traditional technology utilising a different fuel. They're complicated to use. There's a lot of human intervention. They're not. They're simple to operate. They're fully automatic. They switch on and off just like any other boiler. Other misconception, lots of space required. In most instances, in our experience, the domestic market, the boiler with an integral hopper of 100 or 200 kilos means that you just fill the boiler with pellets once a week, and you just top the boiler up at a weekend or whenever. That reduces the space requirement. Once you've got the boiler in, it's a fully automatic boiler. It heats the radiators to high temperature, as you would expect. It heats your hot water to high temperature, as you would expect. 90% of our experience, again, is that there's actually no intervention within the house itself. The one downside, if we can call it a downside, of biomass boilers is that they are larger. It's not a white box on the wall as one expects with an oil or a gas boiler. So they tend to be positioned out of the living space, in a utility room, in an outhouse, in a garage. But the actual operation and the performance is exactly the same as one would expect from any other boiler, but with the advantage of much lower running costs, particularly against oil and LPG, and low carbon emissions. So, it's a win-win in that situation.
Yeah, previously to having the biomass installed, the heating was run off LPG, which for various reasons I wanted to move over, but it ran the whole system off that and provided the heating for the house.
So to go from a fossil fuel boiler, oil or gas, to a biomass is relatively simple in terms of it is just a flow and return, very much the same. If you've got the space to house the pellet boiler, it is a simple case of just tying that in to your existing system once the boiler is installed. Most cases you can install the boiler in a position and leave it running side by side, and then it's just a simple changeover. Typical installation time is literally a couple of days.
Today is the time to be looking at biomass if you're seriously considering amending or altering your heating system or looking for an alternative. The Renewable heat incentive, which is a government-backed scheme which rewards the displacement of fossil fuel and the carbon entailed in burning fossil fuels. Biomass is considered to be a carbon neutral fuel, and therefore the reward is very attractive. Most suitable for older properties and less efficient houses, of which the UK is full, but anybody in a rural property that is maybe on oil or on LPG or electricity, the rewards for changing to a biomass boiler are very attractive today. It can be thousands of pounds per year, depending upon the size and the age of your property.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, a secondary reason for buying the boiler was the financial aspects of it. We all got to do a bit sustainable, but we can only go so far with that. It has to still stack up financially, and it does. The LPG was probably costing me about £2,500 a year. I've only had the system in 3 to 4 months, but the estimates are about £1,200 a year. But it's not even like for like, because this boiler is much more powerful than my old boiler. My old boiler couldn't even heat the whole house, so that was £2,500, and my house wasn't heated adequately. Well, this one can more than adequately. Here you can see some very large radiators, and it's got 8 bedrooms, and it will probably be about half the price.
The Renewable heat incentive is a government-backed scheme to incentivise homeowners to change from fossil burning appliances to heat their home to low carbon, greener alternatives. Biomass being considered and measured as a carbon neutral heating source is particularly attractive. As we move and look at the off-gas to rural areas, these are the ones that will be very well rewarded, particularly the older properties and the larger properties that are traditional oil or LPG guzzlers and high cost to heat.
Since I've had the boiler installed, say, the installation was fantastic. The cost savings look great. Obviously, we've got to go for a cold snap to do that. The boiler's more efficient, which is good for me, and it's more powerful, so that's great. So no, I'm very happy with that, and I sort of recommend it. it's the right thing to do financially and sustainable. Yeah.
Wood pellets today are considerably cheaper than oil and LPG, and as a consequence, the reward to those properties and those homeowners heating their homes in rural areas is very substantial, and yeah, it's attractive in today's market.
In addition to what should be a sort of 50% saving on the actual fuel usage, the RHI, the tariffs that the government pay, make it very attractive. It should pay off, we think, between 5 and 6 years. And then after that, I'm going to have a huge ongoing saving. If I put a normal boiler, no one's paying me to put a normal boiler in. So, it seems good sense. Someone's paying me to put a much more efficient boiler in. So that seems great. The installers had to be MCS accredited, which they were. They organised everything for me. The tariff organisation asked a few questions, which they answered on my behalf to make sure it was the right thing. It's, justify putting the right thing in this house. The tariff system was very easy to set up, and there should be nice little lumps of cash appearing in my bank on a regular basis from now on. So yeah, very good.
The RHI will digress, will reduce in tariff as the increase in numbers, or as there is an increase of number of installations. That is already laid down by government, so as the take-up of biomass increases, the reward will decrease. Very similar to what happened with PV, with the electric solar panels, but this time it is known in advance, so we can work to a steady build-up and people can be aware of when there might be a digression, a reduction in the tariff. Apart from the financial aspects for those off-gas areas, I think we have to be encouraged by what government are doing in terms of the incentive. The incentive is there to reward the displacement of carbon, whether we like it or whether we don't. We can all see the weather patterns over recent years have changed. A lot of that, and the clever people are saying that is down to the effects of global warming and carbon in the atmosphere. Whatever we can do nationally and internationally to reduce the carbon emissions has got to be a good thing. I think we will all agree that the planting of trees and using a sustainable fuel source has got to be, again, a good thing globally. And from a UK perspective, it is a funny thing to be talking, but we're talking now about fuel security. Providing we're able to grow enough trees, we will be fuel secure for the foreseeable future. So there are a lot of benefits in looking at biomass, and particularly for those in rural and older properties in the off-gas network as a particular example.
Sustainability is important to me. I think it's important to everybody. We've got to do our bit for the planet. We do what we can. I've already had solar panels put onto the roof. I previously had an Arga that run off kerosene, which again a fossil fuel. So I moved that over, and so that power works very well. I've got 2 young children. They're going to be taking over the planet from me. I don't want to have used all the resources up for them. I feed the kids organic food, local food, sort of free range, that kind of thing. The house is rendered with an organic lime wash. It's the right thing to do, and yeah, it's very important to me as partly my business. I'm an environmental business as well. Clean up contaminated land as opposed to use greenfield land. So it's very important to me.
The supply of the UK home produced is going to see us probably for the next 5 to 10 years. As demand increases, and we believe it will, dependent on oil prices particularly, but I think we're all aware that oil prices have been continually going up over recent years. The supply will then come, just like our oil does today, from various parts of the world, both Europe and North America, Scandinavia, the old Eastern Bloc, Canada. There are lots and lots of sustainably grown trees that were planted originally for the paper mill and the paper industry. They've had to diversify like we all have, and actually it's a new market for them because particularly the pulp paper industry seems to have diversified into pellet production. because we're not buying newspapers, and the paper industry as such is reducing its demand.
The UK has a carbon emission target to reach. Each of us can play a part in that by reviewing how we heat our homes and by replacing older, outdated systems with those that use sustainable fuel sources. The Renewable Heat Incentive is a way to help share the cost, making it simpler and more affordable than you might think. It is possible to install a system that offers you even greater convenience and comfort, and that saves you money without costing the earth.